It was a sunny day that afternoon in early September, though the breeze coming through the Black Lake made the air cool, and the gentle waves that could be heard lapping at the nearby boathouse almost managed to lull Beatrice into a nice nap following her rather eventful morning and the hearty lunch we just had from the Great Hall. "Enjoying ourselves, aren't we?" I had asked in a teasing tone, but all I got from her was a hum in acknowledgement as her eyes closed a moment too long before she responded.
"I quite like this view, Sebastian. Thank you."
The smile she had on her fair features looked to be one of nostalgia. "I'm curious, though."
About?
I watched Beatrice blink past her drowsiness now, resting her chin on her hand in an attempt to stifle a yawn. With my charm's homework now done, and the open book on her lap now seeming to fail in holding her attention, we both leaned back on the gazebo's railings and settled in to just chat. "You mentioned your Nana being the one who raised you to be aware of magic. Was she in Ravenclaw too?" My line of questioning seemed to chase away any sense of sleep from her mind, as I observed Beatrice weigh her next words.
"I assumed she was. She never really talked much about herself before marrying my grandfather."
"Have you tried asking your mentor about her? They may have been contemporaries during their time at Hogwarts."
Professor Fig doesn't recall the name Aileen during his time as a student here, although admittedly a first name is not much to go by if I have no idea of the maiden name she used to carry before then. But enough about me. What about your parents? Were any one of them sorted into Slytherin too?
She hastily chose to change the topic, so I let it slide for now, though anxious to have let the matter focus on me as I rubbed at my nape. Only my uncle, actually. My father was a Gryffindor and mother was a Ravenclaw. Wasn't the least bit surprised when the sorting hat gave my sister and I options. Remembering it made me pause, though. Surely a petty thing such as house rivalry wasn't the only reason why my uncle always found fault in my father. But like I said, Anne made the decision for the both of us when she decided to befriend Ominis and I followed suit. I garner it's the same for your case.
Likewise, though what you said about the sorting hat giving you options, had it also mentioned anything about Hufflepuff?
Ah, our friends who are loyal to a fault, with patience being their virtue. The sorting hat may have also mentioned something along those lines to me before. A hat stall I was considered. Being given all 4 options was definitely a pleasant surprise at that time, and I had to chuckle in remembrance before casting Beatrice a teasing look. But the way I see it, ironically goes against what we're planning later tonight.
I awoke to the insistent chuffs from Hermes as he pulled at the strands of my hair. I had to quietly wave him away, as I blearily tried to make sense of how much time had passed since my study session with Sebastian, thankful that I now only heard Constance's and Samantha's soft snores of sleep. Stroking the heart-shaped down that lined Hermes's feathered face, I quietly pushed open my bedside window to let him fly off into the night, casting one last look at the journal entry I'd made about the day before silently slipping on my school robe as I carefully made my way out of our dorm room. September 3rd, 1890. Professor Fig found a map that leads to something in the restricted section, but he was called away by the headmaster before we could make any further plans. Had he not insisted I learn Incendio from Professor Hecat first, we could have already gone without a hitch, though learning a new spell is always a welcome challenge. As it turns out, spells used together in just the right way are more powerful than they are by themselves. Interestingly, Professor Hecat only taught me the fire-making spell after insisting I'd finish my second round at crossed wands first. Seems the unsanctioned dueling club isn't as secret as it's believed to be. And my early morning didn't stop there either. I've managed to find an excuse to explore parts of the castle by helping find gobstones, chasing after flying keys, and even following a treasure map. Hogwarts surely contains a seemingly infinite supply of surprises and mysteries waiting to be discovered. I hope to uncover more of them during my time here. I've also managed to convince Sebastian to help sneak me into the restricted section tonight. Amusing though how this won't be the first adventure I've had with him for today, as Sebastian had also accompanied me in the Hidden Herbology Corridor to collect a venomous tentacular leaf for my classmate Duncan. But I doubt it will convince others of his bravery. Much like I doubt what I'd end up finding in the library later.
Trust. I had really found it surprising that Professor Weasley had entrusted me with escorting the new student at all yesterday. But then again, Wasn't it Beatrice herself that requested my company? And here I was again, having been the one she first thought of to ask in accompanying her in this curious search. I wondered what it really was she'd be looking for down there in those dusty shelves of books, most of which I had also scoured myself in search of a possible cure for Anne's curse. It was obvious Beatrice was keeping something from me too. No matter how confused she was on casting that powerful blast of magic yesterday, I was sure it somehow related to why that goblin had Rookwood follow after us in the 3 broomsticks. I'd risk assuming that Beatrice saw me as someone reliable at this point, but I needed to give her a reason to trust me with her secrets. I thought this through silently, relaxing my arms on the balustrade behind me when a flutter of robes caught my eye, and there, silently making her way down towards me, was the subject of my current dilemma. The dim light silhouetting her form seemed to give her an even more enigmatic approach to which I'd felt my heart skip a beat. Though I brushed it off by smiling teasingly her way, raising a finger to my lips as I motioned for her to quietly come over to where I stood.
See there? That's the door we need to reach. And those annoying prefects would love nothing more than to rat on us to Scribner, so don't let them see us. Understood?
I can be sneaky. Let's go.
Hold on now. There's a spell you should know. The Disillusionment Charm. Good for getting places you're not supposed to be. Cast it and you'll appear as little more than a trick of the light, just as long as you keep your distance and stay quiet.
You mean I'll actually be able to turn invisible?
Something like that. It's not as foolproof as a cloak, but those are expensive. And spells are free. Give it a try.
I wasn't sure if this was one of the spells Fig had at least taught Beatrice over the summer, but I made sure to slowly show her the proper wand movement before I'd cast the disillusionment on myself. And while I wasn't surprised at her getting it at the first cast, I had raised an eyebrow, or two, at observing how easily Beatrice even incorporated the use of basic cast to distract the prefects away from their respective posts. She really is good at being sneaky, I'd thought in amusement, remaining quiet as a jobberknoll as I followed after her down the stairs leading into the library. It wasn't until we entered, though, that I kept myself from bumping into Beatrice. Blast! The librarian's still here. Quick, behind the bookcase. I'd grabbed at what I assumed to be part of her sleeve, but was momentarily shocked to be met with the warmth of her hand. But I instinctively held onto her tighter as I pulled her into hiding before we'd cast off our disillusionment. Damn.
You told me the librarian would be gone by now.
I said usually, but it'll still be all right. Do you see her desk behind me? The key is in the drawer of that desk. Now, here's what we're going to do. I'll create a distraction to draw her away. You focus on getting the key. I'll meet you outside of the restricted section.
Wait, why do we need a key? Isn't there a spell for this?
I met Beatrice's obvious question with an almost sheepish look before answering.
Alohomora. That's how I always used to get in. But the librarian twigged that I knew the spell and cast an anti-Alohomora charm on the lock. So now it's just this key. But don't worry. I said I'd get you in, and I always keep my word. Trust me.
I felt her hand squeeze mine back in understanding after I'd assured her, only now noticing that I'd been holding her hand all this while.
You distract, I get the key. Understood.
The way she'd gazed back up at me had me quickly pulling my hand away from her, hoping I'd cast my disillusionment fast enough. I just had to attribute my racing heart to adrenaline as I quickly searched for a way to lure Scribner away from her desk, focusing on a chair to blow up into smithereens. As I quietly murmured, Confringo.
Is someone there? Is that you, Peeves?
Now sure to have caught Scribner's attention, I hastily drew away from the mess I'd made and anxiously waited for Beatrice by the locked entryway to the restricted section, hoping she really was as sneaky as I first observed her to be.
That wasn't so difficult after all.
I relaxed somewhat upon glimpsing her shimmering silhouette cast in disillusionment, quickly but quietly unlocking the gate.
Now to find that book.
Revelio.
Upon entering, I curiously observed as Beatrice's silhouette quickly pilfered through a chest by the corner of the staircase, only stopping her when she tried to reach for a book on our way down.
Oh, that one's charmed to look more useful than it is. It's fooled me twice. Never judge a tome by its cover, I say.
A tome had floated out of Scribner's desk when I was getting the key. Thought for a moment it'd scream bloody murder when I saw my name on its page.
Ah, that would be the Book of Records. Keeps every borrowed book in check. Even the restricted ones. Did you ask it for the title you're looking for?
I actually don't...
I had to interrupt Beatrice, quickly pulling her back towards me before we rounded the corner on the next floor down.
Ghost, don't let her see you.
I only then inadvertently realised I'd grabbed her by the waist as I tried to get my mind to focus on making a distraction, but she beat me to it by casting at an armour across the room. I didn't have time to wince at the noise that might even attract Scribner's attention from upstairs, because Beatrice had now grabbed me by my hand and was swiftly leading us past the ghosts.
Should be in the clear. No need for us to be skulking about.
I'd huffed out a breath as we descended, casting off my disillusionment before Beatrice followed suit, a dazzling flush evident on her cheeks as she smiled at me with barely contained excitement from our shared rush of adrenaline.
So what is it you've been looking for?
I had by now expected her to ask me that at one point. I thought on my response, though, not wanting to see the usual look of sympathy being cast my way, especially from her. I waited for her to do a quick skim upon the section we'd just entered, before settling on giving her a vague but truthful answer. I'm looking for a cure to help my twin sister, Anne, so that she can return to Hogwarts, because Merlin knows everyone else has given up. I'd waited then to see her response, dreading she'd only look back at me with pity evident in her green gaze, but instead, she'd looked up from her field guide to cast me a look of confusion instead.
Why do you think you'll find a cure in the restricted section? Does the Hogwarts matron have nothing that can help Anne?
This was a start. She hadn't dismissed my plight with baseless words of comfort. In fact, she even sounded like she'd taken my words in disbelief as she continued to search the area we were in.
No, we've tried everyone from Nurse Blaney to St. Mungo's.
I tried to explain, watching with a hint of curiosity as she'd pulled out a jangling pouch of what looked like galleons from a chest she'd opened.
But I can research on my own. No need to concern yourself with that right now. Let's focus on what you're after. Which is what, precisely?
I pushed the pouch of coins back towards her as she tried to offer it to me in full.
I'll know it when I see it.
She'd countered just as vaguely, counting the pouch's contents before she seemed to pocket a portion of it, then insistently pushed the rest into my hands.
You're being awfully cryptic.
I caved, not wanting to push back, but equally just as frustrated, despite having accepted the pouch of coins she'd offered. All I could do for now was silently watch over Beatrice as she gleaned passbooks, skimming through titles and tapping on the ones I'd assumed might have caught her interest, the last causing me to raise an eyebrow.
Secrets of the darkest arts. I'm impressed.
I caught myself from saying more, though, as I carefully eyed Beatrice's reaction to my comment, half expecting a disapproving look from her. Yet she only stared at the tome a second longer, expression unreadable, before moving away. Interesting was one thing, but now I had to wonder just how open Beatrice was to learning a few darker spells. Something told me she'd need it. I kept my eyes about as we entered a door in the backmost part of the room. I always thought this area to just be a place of storage for the whole library. I doubt there was anything worthwhile here. Before we could move further in the room, however, I was quick to pull Beatrice behind me as a nearby hanging armour came crashing in front of us. The thunderous clashing of metals was enough to make us hold our breaths as I waited to expect the worst, our shaky exhales the only thing that could be heard between us. I waited seconds before deciding to cast Reparo, but was all too suddenly interrupted by a malignant entity popping from the wreckage.
Who have we here? Sebastian Solo and his new little friend, out exploring where they shouldn't be. Naughty, naughty, you'll get caughty.
Peeves, don't you...
I'm going to tell, I'm going to tell, I'm going to tell.
Oh, blasted Peeves! I've got to stop him, or at least get to the librarian with a good excuse for all of this.
I grumbled, pulling away from my hold on Beatrice as I was about to hunt down the annoying fiend, when I felt a firm tug on my robe sleeve.
Wait, I don't want you getting into trouble for me.
She'd look at me then, a troubled expression clear on her face as she gazed up at me, seeming unsure. Did she doubt I'd be able to handle this predicament? Or maybe she was wary that I'll blame this all on her?
I have a way with the faculty when it comes to disciplinary matters. Besides, I like having friends who are in my debt.
I chose to teasingly assuage her on both accounts.
Now go. Good luck in your search.
I offered her an encouraging smile before turning away, off on a search of my own as I couldn't help but grumble.
Now, where's that damned poltergeist got to?
If my memory served me right, I did hear Peeves boisterously chanting about being trapped and confined in a jar once, and while I might be tempted to do just about that to that poltergeist, I dreaded the thought that I'd ultimately get expelled from Hogwarts after the chaos it'd most likely cause. I doubted even Ominis could save my hair after that. Even though I had an inkling he knew where I was off to again, Ominis had absolutely no idea that I wouldn't be alone tonight on this trip to the restricted section. Having found it already suspicious that even the couple of screeching ghosts were now gone from their posts on my way up, I thought it wise to keep myself under disillusionment as I maintained a peripheral view of the library from the upper floor. Crouched by the balustrade's edge, I mulled over the most effective silencing charm I could use on Peeves. I had doubts if Oskowski would work on making an incorporeal being's mouth disappear, but perhaps a simple silencio might work.
Ickies, who's in the restricted section, asking for another round of detention? Of course, it's none other than Sebastian Sallow, but can you guess the other fellow?
Damn. I watched with growing dread as I saw Peeves finally come out of hiding, trying to catch Scribner's attention, though since the garishly dressed ghoul was more known for his penchant for causing mischief and mayhem, the old witch hadn't paid Peeves much mind at first. Thinking fast, I cast at the nearest object between the library's shelves on the lower floor where the poltergeist was weaving through. I needed to stall Peeves there long enough to shut him up. Swiftly but silently taking the spiral stairs down, I kept a mocking interval of casting on random objects to make it sound like Peeves was the one causing all the ruckus, while also keeping the poltergeist distracted enough away from Scribner.
What mess are you causing again now, Peeves?
Scribner's shriek sounded close enough that it jolted my focus from my disillusionment and caused me to miss casting the silencing charm on the poltergeist by a mere good millimeter.
Sebastian!
Sneaking in the restricted section again! I had thought we were through with this mischief. Clearly detentions are insufficient. I'm afraid I must take this to the headmaster.
But that being said, Peeves informs me that you didn't come alone tonight. If someone has coerced you, I would have you tell me. You're a bright boy. Don't waste this.
At that moment, I remembered Beatrice's almost searching gaze as she looked up at me, unsure, before we parted ways. I just realized what had crossed her mind then, but I now knew how I was going to answer if I was planning to win her trust.
There was nobody else. I came alone.
Oh, Sebastian. What will your uncle say?
Just as I was about to follow Scribner out to be escorted by the prefects back to my common room, though, I spotted the telltale flutter of cobalt blue robes moving away from a lower bookcase. I was glad to know Beatrice would get out of here safe, especially if she used the library's flue flame back to her tower. I just hoped she didn't get into more trouble after this.
Addendum. I discovered an ancient magic portal that led me to a hidden antechamber. There were pensive paladins there who attacked me, but I managed to destroy them all before I found what looks to be an ancient tome. I'm sure Professor Fig will know what it is, but Sebastian got caught by the librarian after Peeves gave us away. But he didn't turn me in. He'll seem to be in more trouble now than his previous detentions. I need to help him somehow. I'm really sorry, Sebastian. You're a good and loyal friend.